How is everyone today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Miss Ann, disregard my text message, by the way.
Hey everybody, good morning or morning. I like images, morning and stuff. Morning and stuff. Yeah, we'll call it morning and stuff. I like that. I'm going to use it from now on. Morning and stuff. It is back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, and disembodied voice Justin, who has already been chatting you up since I had a very slow morning and a bit of technical errors on my fault technical errors. But yeah, morning to everybody. Yeah, it's a something. It's a something day. It's Thursday. At least it's almost Friday. On Friday, I'm always in a good mood because Friday. Yeah, because I'm trying to stick to this 5 days a week thing. So I actually take the weekends off, even though I'm self-employed. I try really hard not to work on the weekends, unsuccessfully most times.
Wait a minute.
Uh
Did
oh.
you say today was Friday?
No, I said it's almost Friday, and at least I can always
Oh,
be in a
okay.
happy mood on Friday. So we're
Uh,
almost there, Justin.
I,
Almost.
I had a brief heart attack. I was
Sorry. Sorry. It's yeah, tomorrow. Well, I Friday is sometimes is a fifth Monday to have to wear, but even then Friday is a superior Monday because it's Friday. So it's almost the weekend. So after my stream and after I do my commission work for the day, I get to do weekend things. So that's good. It's Friday Eve. Yes. Thank you, Coos. It is absolutely really work, Shadow Raven. That's a common misconception. I still feel really tired at the end of the day because I have been doing commission work and filming video and writing PDFs and doing streams. I feel just as tired as I ever felt after a day at Reaper. So it is definitely never think that just because somebody is a writer or an artist or something that sounds really awesome to you, that it is not work. It is absolutely work because it's still working on stuff you must work on rather than stuff you necessarily want to work on. Or if you had your own druthers, you would maybe be working on this project over here, but you can't. So, there's definitely still work mentality, and the most successful freelancers will cultivate that. They will separate their work from their play. Um, Yeah, I usually on the weekend I do sneak in some commission work on the weekend if I feel like it. So I'm afraid my little workaholic tendency tends to pop up there. But hey, Androcrat, thanks for the sub, and also thanks, Image. I saw that you had a resub up there. I forgot to say thank you. But yeah, never. I mean, this is freelance work. I mean, I definitely don't get me wrong. I love working for myself. Like I was so happy yesterday when I totaled up my finances and realized I could keep Kiri and dog treats. So, um, so there's definitely this awesome feeling when you're working for yourself and you are able to make ends meet and you're not hemorrhaging money, right? But it's still work. It's still work. You have to put things in a work box and a leisure box, or you're gonna go crazy. Like the first time I tried freelancing, guys, that's how I screwed up. I didn't have that clear definition, defined area between this is my work time and this is my leisure time, and so I ended up working constantly, feeling horribly burned out and terrible, and it was awful. So this time I'm very much sticking to a 9 to 6, more or less work day, and I'm having a lot more success with it. So yeah, hi guys. Yes, waggle finger. Yes, I'm waggling the finger at you exactly. Um, Yeah, exactly. There we go with Sethany. She's a full-time Etsy seller. So, it's you make all your stuff. It's absolutely work. Even though you love it, right? Even though it's a job that what essentially what you have is you still have a job, but you have a job you love. So it's like the difference. It's kind of like Reaper. Like I had a job, but I had a job I loved, right? And now I have a job that I love in a different way. So you want to find a job that you love no matter what you're doing. But it doesn't have to be freelance, but freelancing does tend to be the job you love, unless some people just don't have the temperament for it. Like some people really end up hating it. And it's the unpredictability, that really gets you as a freelancer. Yes. Yeah, that's my bottom line, Jenna, is if I could pay all my bills and not have to stress about money and buy Kiri's expensive dog treats without stressing about it, then I'm doing okay. So yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, it's cool right now. This is given. I'm still at the subsistence level. Like I'm barely making costs every month, but at least I'm not hemorrhaging money, right? I saved up a chunk of money before I left Texas, and I have not like impinged on that money. So that's awesome. That's a win for me as far as I'm concerned. So now we just need to make a little more money, and then I can actually keep Kiri and Squeaky Balls without complaining about it. The cost of Squeaky Balls in this country, it's ridiculous. Right, Kiri, are you smiling? Is Mama talking about your Squeaky Balls? Yeah, they're gonna come on Saturday. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's where I am today, guys. Hey, let's do some painting. Let's do some nims. I was thinking about this model all morning, and actually part of yesterday evening. Do we need a Squeaky Ball fund? If the Patreon doesn't continue growing, we might need a Squeaky Ball fund. But right now, Shadow Raven, we're okay. As long as I can keep that Patreon slowly growing, I think Kiri will be able to be kept in Squeaky Balls. The Patreon is about 60 to 70% of my income, guys. So gives you an idea that it is very important to keep the Patreon growing. Yeah, Anne's first Twitch goal. Actually, I did think about that, Gergie. What I thought about doing, because I'm in the process of setting up my affiliate now. They sent me the email yesterday, but the tax information apparently takes a while to go through. So I thought about my first month's Twitch earnings actually going to buy Kiri treats and toys. So however much money we can make on Twitch in the first month is like all going to go to Kiri treats and toys. I thought that would be a really fun thing to do. So... because Kiri always needs treats and toys. Well, and poop bags. Because we're in the city now. So it could be the Kiri goal. It could be the Kiri goal for our first Twitch goal. I thought that would be good. Yes, they were actually very prompt. Like right after my stream yesterday, which was my 7th stream, they sent me the email. So soon, Shadow Raven. You have to do a couple of financial things with Twitch in order to get set up. Here, I'm a little crooked this morning. I'm crooked. There we go. Much better. And so what I'm doing now is entering tax info, but I think they have to double check it with the IRS. So you have to wait for a little while before you're going to get access to that sub button while we finish setting up everything. So hopefully I'll be able to finish those tax forms within like the next day, and over the weekend we can finally get it all set up. Fingers crossed. And then we can start on our Kiri treat goal. Dog costs are real. All right, so yay. So we got a really good breastplate going on yesterday. Like it looks convincingly metal, and I'm very happy with it. There's parts of it I still feel like I could tune, but I'm not going to mess around with it. So the thing that we were kind of working on yesterday was these cylinders. A lot of the time, you're going to get greaves on the front of the leg, and if you're not used to curved surfaces, you could get very bewildered by how to do them. And the top is easy enough because this top section is going to catch the light just like we've got it there. And then there is going to be a shadow underneath. Remember, that's a normal NMM. You've got a bright highlight and a dark shadow and then an under reflection. And you kind of have this here, but the under reflection gets a little wonky then because it actually goes into a second highlight. So you're like, oh my God, how do I deal with this? Like, how do I deal with these cylinders? Yeah, thanks guys. Hopefully Twitch will not glitch, and we will be able to take advantage of the affiliate, because I do want to make a Kiri. I actually need to summon Trashorama or somebody else who can make or look up how to make Twitch emojis on my own and make a Kiri face, a happy Kiri face emoji. So, and then maybe a dog emergency one where I put like huge alarmed cartoon eyeballs over her normal eyes and an ooh face on her. That would be the Kiri emergency and the happy Kiri. Those are the 2 stages of Kiri on my stream. So up. Did I miss a question, math file? Yeah, when it gets set up, like it's still in the process. I have 2 tax forms to fill out, and it only let me fill out one last night, which I assume means that it takes time to process that one and check data with the IRS, and then I can fill out the other one. And so at some point, hopefully by this weekend or next week, early next week, depending on business days, quote unquote, we should be able to actually use your Twitch Prime on me if you want to. And I was just saying, let me set up my colors here while I'm babbling at you guys. But I was just saying, Mathaphile, that we'd make our first Twitch goal that whatever money I pull in with Twitch is going to go to Kiri treats, Kiri squeaky balls, Kiri toys and treats, essentially. It's going to be a Kiri toys and treats, and maybe some poop bags, because Kiri needs poop bags, because urban dog. Hashtag urban dog. I'm going to set up my brown liner here. Won't need too much of it, and I think I'm going to thin it way down. Yes, and we need a Kiri emote. So, yeah, So I will let you guys know for sure when my affiliate status is to the point where you can actually sub for me if you wish to. And of course, I still fully encourage you to use subs here on the Reaper channel, because it does show the bosses that we are profitable and that Justin should still have a job. And this is very important. We don't want to lose our disembodied voice, Justin. Yeah, there's so many weird surfaces to do NMM on this model, Mathaphile, that it's like, it's just an opportunity, pretty much. Also, I was kind of obsessing over the shoulder pads last night, or the upper arm greaves, I should say. Like, I was thinking about how I really should do them, like what's going to look right. So, yeah, I thought I would do it. So yes, if you have room in you for a Twitch Prime sub and a normal sub, you could sub to both Reaper and me, and that's what you should do. And maybe even to Justin, who has his own Twitch channel, although I don't know how often you stream. How often do you stream, Justin? Uh-oh, disembodied voice Justin has left us. I thought he might. Well, hypothetically, Graz, I cannot prove it.
Here. Sorry, I spent an entire morning in a meeting with not push to talk on, so I was talking to myself for a second.
Oh, David does that.
Yeah, because I don't want to, clog the stream up with just chatter in the background and dogs barking and random stuff like that.
Yes, right. So yeah. So do you stream very often, Dustin, on your own channel?
I've only streamed a handful of times, and I know that lots of people in the community, they've actually been very supportive. They've asked me to stream, even if it's not painting stuff. Like Jacob has told me, even if you're just streaming video games, go ahead and do it, and people will watch. And
right.
I've considered here lately maybe doing more of that, but I just hadn't had a whole lot of time to set up my own stuff after hours, because I feel like my days are a whirlwind of... Maybe after ReaperCon, I would say. But generally, to answer your question, not very often.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Otherwise, I was going to say, and you should sub to Justin. But I didn't know if you were working actively and you're streaming right now. So didn't want to say go sub to Justin and then have people say, this guy never goes anywhere or does things. You should just stream, I don't know, dog cam. Cat cam.
I could do that. Yeah, just the cat. but I mean... I don't even have affiliate, I believe, on that channel. So
oh, wow.
You couldn't even sub to me if you wanted to.
Well, I just did it. You could totally do that. Although it would take energy. It did definitely take energy from me to get the affiliate, to push and do 2 extra streams a week to get the number of hours and stuff I needed. So I can see how, when you already have a stressful job, you might want to go home and not deal with Twitch.
Yeah, I oftentimes should decompress, and this is weird for me. I'll get off of the computer.
Oh, yeah. I bet. Yeah, well, and that's, I mean, it's good. We all need to unplug every once in a while.
Thank you for the raid, Wavy.
Yeah, I was about to say, Wavy, thanks for the raid. Party of 3. Hey, guys. It's good to see you. We're working on more non-metallic metal, or NMM. No, it is not M&M and M&Ms. It's actually NMM, even though I tend to say it NMM, because it's fun. And I feel like I'm channeling Cookie Monster when I do. But Hi guys. So yeah, so we were doing essentially NMM is painting metal effects using just flat paint, so black, white, gray, etc. And we did the breastplate yesterday, which turned out very, very well. And so now I'm working on these weird cylindrical greaves. NMM. Yes, Shadow Raven has it. Exactly. Raid and lurk. Gotta cook? Alright. Cooking, I understand. I must do a lot of cooking and baking today myself, sadly, after the stream. Somewhere around lunch. I don't know. I have to do it sometime before I run out of energy. I have to prep my fish tacos for tonight and bake a new batch of my morning muffins because it's much more doable for me to have muffins ready in the morning so I don't have to make my muffin every morning. Fish tacos, my favorite food actually. Although I think, let's see, there was something I made recently that supplanted the fish tacos briefly. Gosh, what was it? You made something where I was like, oh, this is very good. I'll have to think. The fajitas were pretty good. But I mean, that's in the same family as fish tacos. Alrighty, so let's get some blue. Remember, we've got our various mixes here. Oh, let's go up. I'm zoomed in. I'm very zoomy to this morning. So here. Yeah, well, and if you're doing it on a dragon, then you're going to be doing it on all sorts of surfaces. Although, NMM on dragons probably should be done in big masses, not every scale. So, like the shoulder muscles, followed by the bicep, and the tricep, followed by the forearm. You might want to block in all of those using these techniques and then just put shading in for the scales. That's how it actually would work on something huge in metal like a dragon. My colors are... My base NMM color is always cloudy gray. It is a... I always reach for it. I don't mix my grays for NMM. Cloudy gray is the perfect middle gray to start with, in my opinion, for steel. So I always start with cloudy gray. It is my go-to color for silver and steel NMM. This next color is 4 drops of cloudy mixed with 2 drops of tropical blue. You could also use ashen blue, 9057, and then 2 drops of pure white to make it a little bit lighter. This is my sky color, so it's introduced up on the upper surfaces when we're doing that stuff to make it look as if it's reflecting a little bit of the sky, which adds to the realism of your armor and keeps it from looking just blank, illustrative, just black and white. And then I've got the pure white because you have to have pure white spot highlights for NMM to be successful. And for my shadow color, I'm actually using brown liner. I often use blue liner, walnut, or pure black, or gray liner. Pure black is probably the one I use the least. I only use it if I've got nothing else easy to reach for, because the liners are really nice for this because they thin down so nicely. So they're not as opaque. You can blend with them a little bit better. And the problem with blending on NMM is usually that you're going from almost pure black to pure white. And that's the hardest blend, obviously, that you can do. So if you have your black be a little more transparent, can really help you get that blend. Oh, I love fish tacos, yeah. I'm thinking about trying some tempura shrimp. Butterflied also. That's something I want to try soon. Hi there, Kiri. Can you settle down? Kiri is restless. There is a possibility of dog emergency today. Settle down, pretty girl. She probably hears David out of his meeting and she's just curious, though. Yeah, go ahead. Settle down. Come on, it's time to stream. Time to stream, little girl. Can you settle? Good girl. I don't know why you try to settle there. That's a very, weird place to settle. Silly dog. I probably need to clear out that corner. I've got a bunch of stuff and she's, turning around and settling and leaning up against my debris. You a good girl? I'm kind of watching her. Oh, she's got tail sign. All right, guys, it's dog emergency time. I'm going to rush Kiri outside. I'm going to be right back. If anybody new comes in, do tell them we will be right back.
Uh, 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 well, when I do find time to play video games, which is pretty much random spurts here and there, I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy 14. What about everyone else here? Man, those look like some fun games. John and I actually played the PoE League when this one started, and it's been interesting. 14 is great. I came over from WoW because I've played WoW since 2006 basically, and it's for the first time in a really long time. I feel like when I log on, there's a multitude of things I could do, and they're all entertaining. Versus WoW and its retail state, I feel like there's basically one or two things to do that's actually fun, and then you kind of lose interest in that stuff pretty quick. So the new studio, Rose, it's supposed to be finished on the 20th, right around that time. So my back is going to be up against ReaperCon of getting everything put in and tested. So everyone here, cross your fingers, please, that we can get it all sorted in time. I think we can do it. It's going to be a whirlwind. The next 4 weeks are going to be. I'm going to blink and they're going to be gone. Like it's crazy. I agree, Image. It's the league is. I don't really do crafting much in the game. I know it's a big part of it, but being that I don't craft, it's not. There's not a whole lot to do. I'm sorry for me, but there is a lot to do for people who care at all about crafting. It's very dense in that circumstance, actually. Well, yeah, of course, Max Styles. I mean, kind of to Anne's point earlier, I do really enjoy what I do, because it's in my wheelhouse and it's not mind numbing, which I feel like previous experiences with my I guess my day job, excluding Reaper, well, actually kind of in the beginning for Reaper, were kind of mind numbing. They weren't challenging for me in any sort of mental facet or any sort of way. It's they were just, I mean, I could listen to audiobooks. You check out, wait till the day's done, and you punch out, kind of thing. But in this case, it's a lot more hours, it's a lot more work, but I enjoy it 1,000% more. Um, so it's putting in the time for me is not, it's just not a problem at all. I look forward to putting together the studio, like I said, and that's going to be a blast. And like I said, we'll blink, and then next thing you know, it'll be after ReaperCon, and John and I will be planning some sort of vacation, or at least disappearing off the map for like a week. I agree with that, Mathafal. I think, honestly, I think especially right now with the balance right now from work to life, which is it's definitely off because of ReaperCon and stuff. But with that being said, when I do want to kind of decompress, I feel like painting is the perfect hobby for that. So there's this time now more than ever is reason to kind of actually give some of the stuff I've been talking about painting a try. So, for instance, I'm planning on picking up one of these airbrushes and maybe kind of playing around with it a little bit. But obviously, I don't know that I'll create anything. I'm also probably going to break the thing because I've never used an airbrush before. Oh, that's unfortunate. Their friends' parents can be very anti-game. Is that anti-game from a D&D standpoint, or anti-game like video games or and that kind of thing? Yeah, I need to watch some videos on it. I've also been told um, that there's various people in the community who are willing to help me. Um, see, Dragon, I feel like that's wacky. It's 2020. I think everyone can agree that no one thing in the excess is good for you, and that includes painting. Like if you did nothing but paint and you didn't sleep and you didn't do anything else, like everything in moderation is good, right? I think there are probably a few exceptions to that as well. Like, maybe really, really hard drugs. I would say that even those in moderation aren't great for you. But I mean, it's one of those things where there's no reason your child
Get
can't
it, Kiri.
play Animal Crossing for an hour at night before they go to bed, kind
Kiri,
of
get
thing.
it.
I mean, that's
Kiri's
that's
your ball.
pretty reasonable.
Kiri,
It's
speak for
to me, it
everybody.
seems
Get the ball.
very to this day to
Good
have
girl.
those sorts of
Good girl.
stances generally as far as technology is concerned.
Where's my dog?
To me seems very
Where's my
short-sighted
dog? Well, you see
on
my
a
dog's
in a
butt.
balanced sort of way.
There's a Kiri.
Oh, we got a Kiri.
Yeah, briefly.
Oh,
Briefly. Yep, I was trying to get a Kiri, but she's always like, the minute she sees a camera, she's like, I am going to turn it in the most awkward way so you cannot see me. This is why we don't have a dog cam, because if there was a dog cam, like, Kiri would do nothing except, like, nibble her paws, lick her butt, turn her butt to you so you would see nothing except the butt of the dog all stream. This is the way that Kiri would work. Yes. So, Kiri, yes, hopefully Kiri is now empty. One hopes. She's just having issues. She's gonna continue to have issues. Old dog factor. Hey, old dog.
oh, thank you for these PDFs, Groz. That's actually helpful as it can be, really.
All right, there. Oh my gosh. Yeah, there we are. Now we can actually get something done. Let's actually get something done. So if you guys need this, it kind of puts off the color, so I'm going to move it, but just so you've got it, that's her item number. I forgot her little header card. I don't know where I put it. So that's who we're dealing with right now. Yeah, Kiri she knows, like, from a childhood where we did nothing but take pictures of her. She has a camera phobia for sure. Oh no, where did I put my glasses? Oh no, it's gonna be one. Oh, there it is. Phew. I'm like, seriously, Kiri, if you ate my glasses and you exploded, or if you caused me to eat my glasses. There we go. Much better. Yeah, exactly. 5 million pics of crocodile tail and none of the teeth, right? Exactly. Oh, alrighty. So cylinders. The first thing you do is you put your brightest highlight goes right down the middle when the light source is from above. The light is going to fall down the top of the item. Let me see if I can mimic this. There it is. So cylindrically, I'm pointing this so that it's my ring light is my brightest light, and it's coming from that direction. So you can see how the light, more or less, I've got it a little bit off center, but you see how the light is going more or less down the middle. There we go. There's the middle, see? So, and then also look at how we're dealing with this now. We've got dark shadows on either side of that light. One side of the light does have a little bit of a midtone on it, right? If I move something close to it, you get the under reflection. See that my hand picks up the light down there. And this is a very shiny object. It's not chrome shiny, but you can see how it is. So if you look at the bands of light and shadow on this, that's how you do a cylinder. You have a bright highlight down the middle. You have midtones on either side, depending on what side is technically the upside or the underside. For her, the upside probably counts as the outside of her leg, because there's going to be more light bouncing from the environment than there will be on the inside of her leg, which is going to be in shadow from her body above. So essentially, the inside of her leg is going to be this side. The outside of her leg is going to be the other side. The outside of the leg is going to be a little bit of a lighter gray between that bright highlight. And then you see that outer highlight on the far edge. So it's really like bands of light and shadow are how to think about NMM. How to think about non-metallic metal. So, Kiri, you cannot possibly have to go out again. Go settle. Yeah, I could see that, Bandar, where working at home would kill your desire to do PC gaming. Painting is a nice break. Yeah, unplug. You should take the ruddy brown up to orange. If you're talking about the leather belt here, this is the ruddy leather, you mean? I will definitely take the ruddy leather up toward orange. I may do a mixture of orange and a skin tone, because leather tends to react well to that. Right, but how are you, like, yeah, essentially what you've got to do is you've got to take what you see in real life, Mathophile, with this, and you've got to simplify it to where you can fit it onto this and paint it onto that. So you always want to break it down pretty simply on a 28 millimeter. If you were painting a 54 or a 72 or a bust, you would be able to get very, very in detail on this. But for this, even though they're a similar size, you may not be able to paint as many bands, and it may not make sense for you to paint as many bands. I mean, like I said, she's going to have a strong shadow falling down here, right, from her body. So the inside of her legs is going to be darker just because she's going to have a shadow there. You can see the shadow falling on the base. So we have to always think, you can look at an example in isolation to get an idea how to make it look that way, which is why I tend to use my brush ferrule to show you that. But then, you know, how much you could actually do on the model is variable. So for me, I'm going to take my shadow color and I'm going to mix just a tiny bit of my cloudy gray into it. And I'm going to come down with that shadow band on the inside of the leg. And I'm going to get as close as yeah, you guys can see it good. Getting as close as I can without totally blowing it out of proportion. And I'm just going to block it in, guys. I'm not blending it at all. You always want to, what I've said again, I'll say it a million times, but block in your shadow and your highlight before you start trying to blend them. So we can see here that we've got a little bit of an under reflection here. So if I make these bricks, for example, reddish, then I can catch a little bit of that color there, or more likely down here near her ankle, because there may not be that strong of a reflection. But yeah, I mean, you can see the highlight bands. What you're seeing on these crimps is more of a curve. You know, you've got almost a C-shaped highlight, or that's what it looks like. And what that's doing is reflecting the rounded nature of the surface. Remember, when you have a surface that is rounded, you're going to see a more rounded reflection. So you're seeing that because it's very shiny, you still don't see a broad reflection, but you see that. You can see it there. So that's how a cylinder works. If you ever have to do a leg greave and remind yourself of how a cylinder works, just look at your paintbrush angled appropriately toward your principal light source. All right, so, and on the other side, we need to go a little bit. On this side is going to be lighter, so I'm going to actually mix my brown liner with a substantial portion of my cloudy and bring down a little bit of a slightly lighter shadow. And I'm probably going to need to make how sharp or how broad my highlight is. Because you see my highlight right now is very broad. But this doesn't fit the metal that we did up here. See how narrow my highlight got up here? Remember up here I also started very broad. And then I narrowed it down when I realized that I wanted it to be much more shiny. So right now with this really broad highlight, we're looking like a more diffused metal. Like a more dull metal. So in order to fix that, what we do is we're going to make that highlight a lot sharper. But it helps to start with the broad highlight and then bring in your pure white and really hit the middle of that. And right away, you're kind of setting it up for a better blend. So bright, bright, and more of a kind of spot highlight up the middle of the leg. And then I'm going to bring in some of my sky color with the blue mixed in. Some of my sky color. David is going to echo me. He's gonna have me on twice, so you guys learn even more, right? All right, so I'm minimizing my highlight a little bit. What that means is I may need to actually bring my shadow in a tiny bit because I've likely got it a little broad out here. Like you saw yesterday, and those of you who weren't on yesterday and missed some of the stream yesterday, definitely should go back and look at it, because this is a very difficult surface to do the metal on, and so I'm doing a lot of adjustment. And I hope that this encourages you guys when you see that I have to sit here and correct, you know, and kind of like double check myself and things like that. It's, you know, even me, who's been painting NMM for decades, still on an unusual surface, I need to double check myself and make sure that I'm doing it right, or that it looks right, you know, that I'm not forgetting some aspect of it. So don't feel bad if you don't get this right away. So now I'm kind of blending in my shadow a little bit. I'm narrowing that highlight, see? Yeah, I am, just because I'm blocking. I mean, I'm not going to keep that stipple. I'm probably going to glaze over it, Mathophile, as I blend. But when I'm just kind of blocking stuff in, I do stipple it. Yeah, I'm looking for kind of a dotting effect anyway, a little bit, and I did a little bit of it up here actually. And you see, I did do a spot highlight right on the breastplate, because again, the more you deal with like dots or streaks of light, the more it's going to seem very shiny. So for right now, yeah, I don't think I'm going to keep it a lot of that, especially at here. I need to, here the stippling is more just a layering stroke that is not blending because I'm using thick paint. But I need to isolate like where my highlight's going to stop here. Kiri is the most restless dog in the world today. What is up, Kikir? Did you go over to say hi to David? You getting pettins? I hope Kiri's getting pettins. I can't see, though. There. That's a dog who's getting pettins, yes. All right. Now, I'm mostly going to use my blue color on the outside of the leg. But yeah, I don't know how much of the stippling will stay. It really, like, it isn't realistic. It should really be kind of a streak, but it depends. It depends. It just depends. Does it look right is the question. And I'm going to be adjusting it until it looks right. And if I lose the stippling in there, I don't mind it. It's kind of an artifact brush stroke. If the stippling works, I'll keep it. Kiri, what is the dealio? Are you thirsty or something? Lately, Kiri doesn't like to be shut in during the stream. She seems to prefer to have the freedom to go out and drink her water and do her stuff. What's up, little girl? Here. Come here. Hi, dog face. I know if I bring the camera over that you're just going to, like, turn away and put your butt in the camera. So I'm just not going to even bother. Yeah. Making sure that she settles. There we go. Good girl. Yeah, there's a smile. All right, she's happy. I always watch for the Kiri smile. Alrighty, so there we go. You know, we're right here by this sword. So we can actually take the separate. Now, notice the angle here, right? We got an angle that's here, and we got an angle that's here. And if I say the light is falling from this direction, that means although we're making more of a highlight on this side, on the sword it's going to be the opposite, right? You're going to actually get more sky color on this side. So I'm just going to block that in. Now, with swords, it often helps to do bands of highlight and shadow. The other thing that we can actually do on this sword, once we decide what color this cape is we can have some of that color reflected in it. And we should, because it's right there next to it. The light is falling on this fold, and it's right next to the sword. There should definitely be reflected color on that. So we should keep that in mind. Down here, we're going to get a bit of bounce light from the outside of that greave, so that one of our highlights is going to be there. Our main highlight is probably going to be, well, it might just be down there. Want to do a white trace down the middle. With blades, you always want to do this. Just kind of hit that line and then blend your highlights into it. And you also hit the outer edge of the blade, just to get those highlights down the outer edge and the inner. I tend to do a lot of spot wet blends when I'm doing NMM on these small surfaces because I find that it works the best. So if I'm going to do a wet blend, I might put a little bit of the dark shadow up underneath, right underneath the crossguard here, the metal there. And then grab some of my gray and just kind of mix it in. Try to get a good blend with it. As I've mentioned before, what's most important is getting your highlights and shadow placement correct. But the better blending you can do, if the object is shiny, the better it will look. And how? Oh my gosh! It's a Jimmy raid. It's a crazy Jimmy raid. Okay, how many people is that? Was that a gigantic raid?
16, yes. Thank you very much, guys.
Wow.
It's a big old
Thanks,
raid.
Jimmy.
Yeah, how you doing, Jimmy?
Oh, and Jimmy subbed. Thanks for this sub. Yeah, we're doing non-metallic metal today, so we're painting the breastplate and the greaves, and I just started tackling a little bit of the sword. This model, you could paint her as tooled leather or as metal, and I decided to do metal because there are all these weird shapes to try to do non-metallic metal on. So that is what we're doing today. This is a duelist from Reaper. She's an elven duelist, and her name is there, and her item number is 3867. I've been trying to keep her sticky note off camera because she tends to shift the color. So welcome, Raiders. I'm Ann. I work for Reaper Miniatures, and I also do my own thing on the side, but today we are doing the Reaper model, and we're doing a non-metallic metal effect. So I was working on this, and I was showing them how they can even use their brush ferrule in the light to mimic like what's happening on that greave. Like there's a highlight down the middle, and then there's some bands of shadow and light on the side. So that's kind of what we're doing here. We're just using the brush is she released? She's in metal. She should be. I was able to order her regularly. 3867. She's probably not released in bones yet, Mike M. But I mean, that item number is definitely released, I think. I'm pretty sure.
I thought item numbers were 5 digits.
Well, it's 038, but in the catalog, you always drop the 0 off the front. That is ridiculous, Sarduki. Like, I don't think I even have every imprint Reaper paint. And I make the darn stuff. Or I made the darn stuff, I should say. Now Sadie makes the stuff. I no longer make the paint line, but I created it. And for years, I made every batch. Until I moved to be with my fantastic boyfriend. And now, I just paint with it all the time. So, I'm going to put a shadow there. To kind of edge this stuff. I'm cleaning it up a little bit. I've got to pay attention to this side and what I'm doing. Yeah, I find, I mean, I use probably 50, 60, but it shifts, right? And so like, yeah, do you find that it shifts for you? Like you use 35, but sometimes a paint drops out and a different paint takes its place? It does mean you've got a lot of options, Sarduki. So, all right, let's actually, there's little connectors here, little decorative things that I'm going to do probably in gold. I'm just going to outline them to keep them away from the steel that we're doing and to bring them out so I don't forget them. Because, you know, when you've got those little details on the side of the model and you're just like, oh my gosh, after you think you're done, you're like, and I totally missed those. So now I've got those outlined. So that's nice. Excellent. So let's go back to our greave here. It's not quite right. Oh my gosh. I need a bigger sized everything to hold all my models. Like I've kept myself relatively tame with the paint because having made the paint line, I can mix anything I need really. But I definitely could use more model space. Now we're gonna go and do another highlight out here. We're going to keep that shadow band. The shadow here is lighter than the shadow on the inside of the leg because the inside of the leg is going to have a heavier shadow because the light is falling and she's blocking it. You know, she's going to cast a shadow on the base. You can see that. And because she's casting a shadow right here, you know that there's a lot of shadow on the inside of the legs here. You can even see it over here. I haven't made any shadows yet, but you can see the shadow that's falling there. So that means that the shadows are going to be a bit darker and the highlights, the reflected highlights are also going to be just a little bit less than the light that's bouncing out here on the outside of the leg when she's out in her town square or wherever she is. So we can go lighter over here considerably, and I'm going to bring in a secondary highlight along the outside edge of that leg. And I'm doing kind of a, Mathophile pointed it out a little bit ago, but I'm doing kind of a stippling stroke. I'm not really blending. And the reason is that I want to make sure that my highlights and shadows are placed correctly before I start blending things. Otherwise, if I spend all this time like blending things in and then I have to change things, then that's just a pain. And that's such a lot of wasted time because doing that blend from black to white or almost black to white is, of course, the hardest blend to do. So you want to make sure that your highlights are reading correctly before you start trying to blend stuff. And so when you see me doing a stippling stroke, and I'm also using thicker paint than I would for real blending, then that's why. Oh, boy. Pay the neighborhood kids. Tell them that you'll pay them, a couple bucks each to sort out your paint. I guess in COVID that doesn't work as well. But otherwise it would be a grand solution, I would think. All right, so that said, my highlight on this lower part of the greave was very broad, and so I'm narrowing it down a bit. We also need the shadow. The same highlights and shadows that you see on this upper part, you're going to see echoed on this lower part. So, and as I mentioned before, I'm doing a lot of spot wet blending here because it is so hard to blend black to white. That if I can do just a tiny bit of wet blending, and by wet blending I mean I'm blending the two colors together while they're both still wet. I do a lot of that if I'm painting quickly, and if I'm blocking things in like I am now on a very small surface where I need to make it work. I can sometimes get a decent enough start to a blend without having to spend a lot of time to it. Just enough. I need just enough so that I can see that it looks right. There we go. That's a little better. And the other thing I mentioned earlier that some of you new raiders might not know is like when you're trying to do a non-metallic metal effect, like blending is moderately like important. If you're trying to get a really smooth, very reflective surface effect, you definitely want blending or glazing to smooth out your transitions. But what's more important than that is getting the placement of your highlights and shadows down. So if you aren't very good at blending, you can still do passable NMM. Just because if you can nail your highlights and shadows, then you can make it look like metal. So actually I'm going to make sure that she's tight in focus, and then I think I'm going to actually go even a little closer. We'll see if I can manage to, boom, there we go. Let's try this. It's hard for me to stay on camera when I get this close with my, document cam, but it is nice that it can get this close. But you can see how rough my blends are. And yet, when I zoomed out just a little bit, it looked just fine, right? So, especially if you're painting, like, you're painting a character model, say, but you're trying to paint it for, like, high-end tabletop, and you want to try NMM and get a sense of, you know, what it's like. This is a good level. Like, you know, you're really just painting kind of streaks next to each other or lines next to each other to try out the technique, and it still looks good from a distance. It'll still look really good on the tabletop. And then you can, you know, over time as you improve in your blending, you can refine stuff like this if you want. Alrighty. It's pretty impressive when you lay all of the Reaper paints out on one wall. I mean, I think D. Clearman, who was in our chat a lot, he actually had that. He's moving right now, sadly, so his collection is broken down. And I think there's at least a couple others in our community that have every Reaper paint. But when they like set them up all on a pegboard on the wall, it takes up a wall. It's serious paint explosion at that point. I do not have enough room. All my paints are in, well, my main paints that I use, which is probably about, I want to say 50 or 60 colors that I use on a regular basis. And maybe even as many as 75. Are right in a drawer on my right-hand side so that I can reach anything that I need. And that's just, you know, a lot of time. You have all the active Reaper paints. Motor City Ray, that's incredible. Wow, you vortexed them all. Yeah, very satisfying, I know, right? That's great. Yeah, your Reaper paint should last for a decade if you just shake it like every couple years. Like, you could maybe even go 3 years. I probably wouldn't push it beyond that. Paints settle out slowly over time, acrylic paints do, because the water binder, you know, the resins in the paint, what happens, which is what you'd call like acrylic or latex or vinyl, or the synthetic versions of those that are used in today's paint. You know, those things will settle out over time just because they are slightly heavier than the water binder that's in them. And so what happens then is that they slowly turn into a plug at the bottom of your bottle. And that's why I say, you know, shake it every once in a while. With Reaper, it's pretty fine stuff, and it tends to stay pretty in solution. And we aren't using really heavy resins, really goopy resins, so you can go a little longer with Reaper and still have it be good. But if you shake those bottles like once every 2 or 3 years, your paint will stay good for over a decade with the Reaper Master Series, because the dropper bottles also help to preserve it. So I'm doing another dark line here down the other side. It's not going to be quite as dark or pronounced as the one over here, because this one is in shadow and this one's more toward the outside of the leg. The file, why do anything halfway when you go completely effing overboard instead? Well, the problem is, well, first of all, the clear brights. The problem is that my to-go paint list, like what I use from day to day, is often I make decisions based on the most mixable colors. By mixable, I mean the colors that I can use to mix the most other things. So I don't reach for a lot of colors with black in them, for example. I want colors that are more pure pigment so that I can do more mixing. I can achieve more mixing. So let's put a final highlight on the outside here. Why are we putting a highlight on the side of the leg? Well, because there's going to be light bouncing back at that greave from the environment, from the sword here. You know, once we paint this cape and figure out what color it's going to be, some of that color will show up in this highlight as well, because the light will be bouncing off of a colored surface. So that's why we're putting an outer edge highlight on these greaves. Yeah, there. So I'm actually liking that quite a bit. That's looking pretty good. I think I need to bring my highlight up a little bit more toward the middle, but not a pure white. Oh yeah, go child labor. I bet your kids love that vortex mixer. Oh, it's all the clear brights. All the clear brights Motor City Ray, plus a few selected browns. So, all right, so every clear bright. So clear red, clear yellow, clear green, clear blue, clear magenta for sure, and clear purple. Plus what I call the secret clear brights. So things we're going to have the earthen clears coming out with the Kickstarter. So like that's the yellow oxide, brown oxide, and stuff like that. But in the meantime, I would use like Palomino Gold for the yellow oxide, because it's pretty much close to a pure yellow ochre. So that would be a good stopgap one. I used to use the old Ruddy Brown from HD because that was a secret clear bright, but it got canceled, so it's coming back in the Kickstarter when that comes out. It's coming out as Oxide Brown. So I have several of those old paints that I keep around. Plus pure black, pure white, metallics if you use them. What else do I have in there? Oh yeah, Sunrise Orange for an orange, because Sunrise Orange is the closest to clear orange that you'll get. And I like it a little bit better as far as utility because it's got just a tiny bit more coverage, but it's still really vibrant orange. All right, so I got a little bit of a highlight on the inside of this leg. I want it to really not be too bright as it goes up, though. So I might add some water to it to thin it down. So just a little bit of a highlight going up. But you kind of want to round that highlight over the calf because the greave is a little bit rounded there. It bulges out a little. But you don't want that highlight to go up too far because there's going to be, obviously, from the overhang of the pants and the boots and the loincloth, you're going to have a shadow here. So you want to keep that shadow right under here so it looks correct. So mostly what I'm doing here is really concentrating on light sourcing, right? And when you do non-metallic metal, you really do have to think about it. And once you're thinking about it with your metal, you may as well think about it with the rest of your stuff. Oh, yeah. Actually, I did a Clear Brights on my Patreon. Patreon.com/paintingbig is my Patreon. And I did do a PDF for my $5 tier Motor City Ray on the Clear Brights. And it talks about what the secret Clear Brights are or equivalents. So, but that's like, when I go on vacation, should I whip out the siren? I should whip out the siren. So when I go on vacation, guys, I usually take one model with me. I have a travel model that doesn't, it's not multi-part and won't break. Let me grab her real quick. And I just paint that entire model with Clear Brights. And right now it's a bust from Nuts Planet. And she's kind of naked, so we're going to put our thumb skillfully over her assets. David is laughing at me. And I'm going to zoom out just a tad. So right now this is the siren that I'm working on. And all of her is painted just with Clear Brights. So everything, it gets pretty deep blue back there. But everything is done just with Clear Brights, including the scales on the arm there. That's how the scales are going to be brought up over the whole model. But so, yeah. So when I travel, I find it kind of challenging and fun to bring a minimum of paints. I think at most I've probably got 20 paints in this bag. And I also bring a brush-on sealer, a bottle of flow improver and water mix. I think that's pretty much it. I think all the Clear Brights, Palomino Gold, Ruddy Brown, Sunrise Orange, one silver metallic just in case, Yeah. Oh, and I forgot lantern yellow, because clear yellow is more of a greenish yellow, and lantern yellow is more of an orangish yellow. So yeah, look at those bottle sizes. So so yeah, this is a beautiful model. I really love her, and I really like how she's turning out. So yeah, so there's my girl. And her front is almost completely done. I need to sit down and like work on it. But you know how it goes. You've got 60 zillion different projects. And yeah, I use a mix. I mean, I use the Reaper Flow Improver actually is a pretty good mix by itself to use in your stuff. And that's pretty much what I use. Sometimes I use other flow improvers mixed into a lot of water, because if you do buy anything like a Liquitex flow improver or a Winsor & Newton, it's meant to be thinned like 20-1. So that's when your empty bottle mixture comes along. But this right now I'm using a Reaper mix. But yeah, and you should sub to my Patreon. See, thank you, Shadow Raven. Yeah, there's a lot of info on my Patreon, and if you are interested in the way that Master Series Paint works, the $5 tier is for you, because that's pretty much PDFs about Master Series Paints. I do different ones. I was doing Dungeon Dwellers 3 at a time, but then somebody asked me to do something on gray, like why you would ever buy gray. Why wouldn't you just mix it? So I might do a little feature on the grays I use and why and how. Take a break from Dungeon Dwellers this month and do something else. Hey, thanks for the link to the Patreon, or the bot, and Shadow Raven. Hey, Rathmore, how's it going? So, all right, so we've got this. One thing that you guys may notice, anybody who's new on the stream here and watching it, I go heavy into explanation. Like, I believe in really teaching you why I'm using the paint, how I'm using the paint, why it works, and what the thought process is behind it. And I'm more focused on teaching than I am on just showing you a pretty paint job. So if that's your shtick, if you like that, then yeah, you may really like my Patreon. So you can always go over and take a look at it. I've got a couple of pieces of free content up. I'm always meaning to do more, but gosh, there's a lot of work to do. So, but yeah, go over and check it out by all means. I just put up an email coaching tier as well, which I've got a couple takers on. Actually, you guys will get emails today. I ran out of juice yesterday. I had a lot of stuff to work on, trying to get the Twitch affiliate and all the rest of it. So I probably am splitting myself too many ways. So now I'm looking over here at the sword. I want to make sure that the light is falling roughly in the same place. Yes, you're helping. Very good. Yay, Motor City Ray. I'm going to have Motor City Ray on my Patreon. That makes me happy. Thanks, guys. Yeah, my Patreon is mostly what keeps Kiri in dog food. It is a very large part of my income as a freelancer. So I really appreciate it. Plus, I love working on it. Like, I honestly really enjoy doing the Patreon and my Patreon community. Do join the Discord, Motor City Ray. We chat, and people, when they put stuff up, I try to give them feedback. Alrighty. Mostly I'm just trying to get this highlight kind of slotted in. I kind of like it there. And often a sword will look better if you have a couple of bands of highlight and shadow, because there's going to be stuff that's reflecting. Like, you're going to have a light fall down. It's probably going to hit about there. You can do something as simple as draw a line. Just figure your light is falling straight down. And when you go down here, it's probably going to hit about here with another highlight. And it's also going to get some light reflected from that cape there, so that might have a color to it eventually. But doing a couple of bands of highlight kind of helps make this sword look a little more real, because there's stuff that's going to be blocking light or bouncing shadows at it from various angles. And so doing a couple of bands on a sword like this is a good idea. If you're working on a larger sword that's 54 or 72 millimeter, going with even more bands of light and shadow can help, or it depends. Sometimes you can just go simpler and it looks just fine. But notice as I'm putting in these light bands, that it is starting to look more real. And less like a sword that I've painted gray. Because now I'm suggesting, especially now that I've got this greave figured out, now it's really looking like it's reflective, right? So it's pretty cool. And normally I would take it up a little bit toward the tip, but see, you've got this dark boot here, and it is going to be a black leather. We're going to do a shiny black leather on her leather boots. So because of that, it's going to have that reflection from there. So the tip on this side of the sword is going to be darker. So I'm going to keep it darker. I'm going to grab some of my shadow color and actually take that down a fair bit. I'm going to keep those white edges around it, though. Because you usually do have... Oh, no. I blorfed. Blorf. We have blorfed. Oh, and I forgot to zoom me in. Hold on. Zoom. Okay, so I blorfed. See? No big deal. So grab your white and touch it up. When you make mistakes in miniature painting, just take a deep breath and just go on. If you have to, get up, get some tea or a soda or something, or a water, or whatever makes you happy. Go and take a moment, pet your dog, and then go back and just fix it. Don't let yourself get too upset when you make blorfs. I make blorfs on... Blorf is a technical term, of course. I make blorfs on stream all the time. We even have an emoji for it. So the most important thing when you blorf is just to keep going. See, there we go. Reaper Miniatures has given me blorfs. All of the highlights that I'm doing are pure white. If they look like they're gray, it's because the white is slightly thinned, so it's allowing the gray to show through a little bit. That allows me to come back in and put a sharp spot highlight on with a pure white that's thicker if I want to. So wash your hands before petting the doggy, and then wash your hands after petting the doggy. You never know what the doggy's been rolling in. Especially doggies who are let go outside with impunity. All right, so now on the other side, though, on the other side down here, we're going to have some light bouncing up probably pretty strongly from the pavement because we have enough strong lighting on the figure to imply that she's out in sunlight. And that means that whatever this pavement is, it's going to be bouncing back light and color at the underside of the sword. We don't know what color it is yet, but we can at least block in a highlight to show that. And it helps, too, because we've got this dark shadow on this side and the light shadow on this side. So we've got a bit of contrast going on there, which is nice. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to blend it up a little bit. And my blends are all very rough. I probably could add a little bit of water to my paint at this point to get my blends a little bit nicer out the gate. Whenever you're working with thinner paint, it's a little easier to blend like this. Oh no. Oh no. Doggy assault Valandar. Yes, there will be cat hair, no matter what you do. And in my case, Kiri just has little rocket launchers in her fur, is David's theory. And the fur rocket launchers simply lob hair grenades onto my painting table. David has never had to deal with pet hair in his paint jobs before. So, yes, that is one of the adjustment things of us living together is he's never lived with an animal before because his mom was allergic. So now he's got Kiri. Oh dear. Yeah, the hair eject button, exactly, which is constantly being pushed. Alrighty, so when you are doing highlights and shadows on the other side, they do tend to oppose each other. So if I'm going to do another highlight over here, I'm probably going to do it opposite this shadow here. And I'm probably going to leave that dark up there. I'm probably not going to do... I do want to bring up the underside, so I do want to do some white and bring up this opposing edge, just like the other edge is white. And I'm using the side of my brush note with very little paint on my brush. It lets me very easily hit that edge, so you don't have to try to paint it. So you can easily and precisely hit the edge by just using the side of your brush with very little paint on your brush. And here I do have to paint the edge because it's up against something. So just go slow. I'm not doing stippling so much as I'm just like doing real short strokes so I can keep control. It's harder to do a long straight stroke than it is to do a succession of linked dashes. So that's what we're doing there. So this is starting to come together pretty well. I guess I will have some. I'm thinking the cape might be yellow. I mean, I painted it yellow and then I went back on that and decided I didn't want it yellow. It may still end up yellow. I'm not certain. But if so, it's going to be reflecting a lot of lights. So let's see here. Maybe we will make another highlight. Just a tiny bit of one up here. But we do need a little bit of a shadow, a stronger shadow on the opposing side of that blade. So it's facing the light on this side. Light is falling down, it's hitting on this side. So on this side, we need a little bit of a darker shadow opposite the light source. We're losing our darks. We have a decent sword, but it's not super shiny yet. So one of the things we can do is to put a dark shadow running down the edge on the opposite side from that highlight, that white highlight we put down the middle. We can bring in more dark on the side that is facing away from the sky. And we can focus that dark in the areas that we've already mapped out to have a shadow. So see, like that. So we can play with that and blend those in and make them a little bit corgi glitter. Horse doesn't fit through the door. Yeah. Humans do shed also. I also shed. So that alone, that shadow alone starts making our color look a bit more shiny. So usually if you are doing non-metallic metal and you think that your highlights and shadows are in the right places, but it's still not looking shiny, ask yourself if you've taken your highlights up to white and if you're taking your shadows down dramatically. And you will find, if you emphasize those things, that your item starts looking a lot shinier. I'm going to put a dark line. I'm actually going to line around the sword here just to make it stick out. I'm going to separate it out from the other NMM, so I'm going to put a heavy shadow back here. And a dark line between the metal of this crossguard, where it holds the blade, and the sword itself. And the more we define the area around the sword, also the more shiny it will look. So let's do some lining. Try not to erase the white highlight on the edge that you did. If you have to do a broader band of shadow here and then work it in, you can. So any way we can make that sword stand out and give it more contrast will help with the shiny effect. Blurfed just a little bit there, but that's okay. Now, if I come back and paint this cape in a lighter color, I'll just pretty much take white and paint over this this broader line just right up to the sword to leave just a little bit. But you can see now that makes the sword stand out a bit. You can see that I do not have great blending on this. But it still is starting to look like a shiny sword. So now, what I want to do is I want to put in some spot highlights. I want to broaden my highlights a bit, I think. So I want to bring them a little bit wider on this side, at least near the top. And I think I want to see if I need to correct any of this edging. Probably the easiest item to practice your NMM on is an angled sword like this. It's better if they're holding it out, like so you can have one side very clearly toward the sky and one side not. But this will do, because one side is still noticeably up and the other side is down. So swords are some of the best things to practice your NMM on. They're just, they're two planes. It's obvious which is up and which is down. And then you just have to kind of work with it and figure it out. There we go. All right. I'm going to actually get some thick white and do spots. If you don't get the, like with gold NMM, do you mean, Valendar? Since silver is always desaturated. I mean, you could, if you're going to do blues, you want to go more towards subtlety, I would say. I always think that when I see silver reflecting other colors very strongly, very vibrantly, that it looks wrong. It looks like paint gun attacks. News at 10. Yeah, that's a hard one, actually, Coobs. That's a really hard one. At that point, you have to kind of use your common sense and decide which side is going to be getting the most light. There's always going to be something. The sun won't be perfect, right? So if you give yourself a slight angle to light, that can really help with vertical swords and stuff. Otherwise, you just arbitrarily pick a side. So, well, let me show you. Like, if you're doing more saturated colors, and you've got your sky blue, and it's tropical blue, You could glaze that into your NMM, but there's a real danger that it's going to be too strong. It's like, even, like, I've taken pictures. I'm not going to go hunt for this photo, but last summer I took photos at the Renaissance Fair at an armorer's shop. And I took pictures of the swords on the walls. And most of the time, the color reflected in them from the trees and the sky was a bit muted, like not bright. It was there. You could see the color, but it wasn't as bright as the actual trees. So I would say that if you're going to do, that's why I always mix blue into my gray, because if I just paint blue over this, it really runs the risk of getting a little bit too blue. That's not bad because I'm painting it very thinned over gray. So if you're going to use like more saturated colors, I would paint them very thinned over the gray to do glazing. Hey, Rax. And then again, when I do like stuff like reflections off of the cape and off of the ground here, I'm going to be using thin glazes of the colors that I'm doing here. I don't want it to look like I'm painting it on solid. A reflection is never going to be as strong as the item is under light. And so it will be close if it's really close to the surface, but it's not going to be like super intense. Like if I paint these terracotta, like red brick, this will be a slightly paler version of the red brick. It'll still have enough there. It was at Scarborough, Mighty Garrett. There are a couple of good shops there to take pictures of arms and armor. Let's see. What do we got? I'm looking. Varl, what did you ask? Master Series full set from 1,000. And the triads also go up from. Yeah. Yeah. Master Series Core is Master Series Core. Whether you're buying it in a set or you're buying it in triads, it is the same. The SKU never changes. If it did, distribution would kill us. Distribution in every game store trying to order our paint would kill us. All right. Let's. Oh, yes, right. I want spot highlights. Pure white. Now this is a case where you could reach for solid white. Solid white is the HD white, and it's in bones now, and it uses a slightly different white base and a slightly different percentage of flatting agent to make it a little tiny bit of a harsher white. So I usually don't bother. I find that the whitest area on the model reads as white. I know a lot of people like to use a really harsh like tube paint for white highlights. I've just never found that that's necessary. So in the middle, toward the middle, I'm going to do a spot highlight. Secondary spot down here, right toward the middle. Probably can't even see those. You can kind of see them. See that little spot right there. So essentially I'm choosing where my first and secondary spots will be, and I'm using full strength white paint. It can be hard sometimes when you got a fine tip brush like this to get full strength paint to come off of it. And so the way to do that, and you want to work this into your center line, by the way. So might want to spread out an extra bit of white. The way to do it is to actually have some water in your brush. Not a lot, but just make sure your brush is damp. So what I tend to do if I'm using a thicker paint for a spot highlight is I'll get water in my brush. So you can see that drop of water on the ferrule and all that. And then I'm just going to squeeze it out. So squeeze. And not tightly, just run my fingers through it. So you can still tell that it's damp because it still makes a good point. Then you dip it in your super thick paint. So what happens is you've got just enough moisture in your brush to keep that thick paint able to work, right? The thick paint keeps it from drying super fast or getting gummy really fast. And then you can work with it. So I'm essentially using that to strengthen that white line down the middle of my sword. I do want to watch out. I don't want that line to get too overwhelming. But there, now we have a brighter, see, we've got a noticeably brighter highlight on the upside of the blade, and that's what we want. So that's why I'm using just a pure white, straight up, no thinning whatsoever. Yeah, tips. I mean, I started doing this as an alternative to brush licking because a friend of mine got cancer and they thought it might be like stuff in the paint or paint water, particle matter here and there. You never know. paints are not toxic, non-toxic, but they're not food grade, as I like to remind people. So I started just finding ways to get my brush to make the tip I needed without doing the brush licking thing. And what I found is that putting it in my hand like this and just pulling it would get the excess fluid off of it. And then I found that having that fluid on my brush was like an integral part of my painting style when I went back to relook at it. Because having that fluid on your brush when you're using a thin brush with a very fine tip helps keep your paint at the right consistency. It gives it that little extra boost that keeps it from drying right away, right? When you're using just a tiny bit of paint. And I use these thin brushes with ultra thin fine tips because I'm doing such tiny details. So between this and my 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 Da Vinci, which is, you know, my brushes are hiding around here somewhere. They're sulking because I've been using this Raphael so much. But my normal painting brush, let me squeeze some water out of it. You know, I've got tiny little narrow brushes, and the problem with these is that the paint will dry in the tips very quickly. But if you just squeeze the water out lightly and you keep a little tiny bit of fluid back in the body of the brush, it actually helps your paint stay solvent on the end so that it continues to come off the brush for longer. So yeah, I've been working on the leg greave and the sword to kind of show people Crowley. So don't worry, you can always go back and catch it. This is funny, by the way, guys, that I got totally distracted by these two bits, considering that I was obsessing about the shoulder more than anything all of this morning. So, all right, what do we got? What time is it? Okay, we have time. We're going to jump into this shoulder and try to make it work. Do I ever mix NMM and metallics? No. Never. Never, Crowley. It doesn't look right. There's one model that I've seen it look right on, and even then when I went to paint that model, I tried it and didn't like it, so I stopped. Hold on. It's a Games Workshop model. And, let me grab her. On the box art, she's science fiction, she's 40K. On the box art, she has her breastplate painted with metallics, and the gun is painted with metallics, but all the gold braid and all the other details were painted with NMM, which makes sense, and it's probably the only time you could get away with it, because things like gold braid and detailing aren't necessarily going to be metal. And so you could get away with making like the edging on the cloth and the cloth of gold for the braids, you know, you could get away with making those NMM and making the breastplate metal. But when I went to try it the first time, I just really didn't like the effect. It really looked wrong to me. And so I stopped. I did it also once back in the day, like I tried it on a model that I sold on eBay, and again, it didn't look right. The reason it doesn't look right is that when you are doing a metallic surface, your eye right away is going to say, oh yeah, that's shiny. And it acts like shiny, right? Because it is a shiny paint. So then when you put NMM next to it, your eye is confused. It doesn't read any of your NMM like metal or shiny because it doesn't want to, right? Because it's got an example of metal, real metal, right next to it. So next to that real world reflection, your NMM is always going to be failing in the mind's eye. It's not going to be the same. And so I find that that is why it does not look correct. So I am essentially going back and I've repainted her breastplate and her gun, and it's all going to be NMM. And then it will look correct. I get that question a lot, and that's why I'm glad I'm still working on this commission piece. Although I did get more done on her. Because she's an excellent example of, like, if you look at her GW art, it's not bad, but it definitely makes it look like you can... It makes it look like anything that's not the gun and the breastplate is not metal. Even though they're trying to say that it's shiny, it's not reading right. Chainmail. That's actually a good question for the AMA Mathophile. Could you pop that over there? I don't have a good model with chainmail. I think I have done it on stream before, so it's somewhere in the Reaper Pro tips. But it's super easy and fast to show if I can find a good chainmail model. Like, actually, chainmail is the easiest thing to do with NMM, and it almost always looks great. So, you know, but as far as approaches go, I don't have the time to digress right now on it. So, okay, this horrible shoulder thing. So the light is coming down, and it is the shoulder thing is overhanging the rest of the metal here. So I had started out by making the shoulder thing dark on the underside and then light there, but that actually is not correct. The shoulder thing is going to overhang, and there's going to be a dark shadow right under it. So I'm going to have to move my highlight down. I just need a little narrow shadow because it's not overhanging very much. But it is overhanging. Sadly. So I will need a little bit of a shadow there. I will need a little bit of a shadow at the top of the shoulder blade, or the shoulder pad, because... And this is also a big curved surface, like it's a half, it's a quarter crescent, or a quarter circle. So it's also got problems because of that. Okay, maybe not issues, maybe not problems. It's got features because of that. So I think what I will end up doing is painting it kind of like I paint shields, which is to say alternating dark and light band. So you've kind of got a shadow there because you're going to have a highlight here, which is going to be a bounce highlight, and you're going to have under reflection here. This is going to be all reflected light on the underside of this. I think Sir Forescale has actually been... Oh, yeah. There we go. Sir Garrick the Bold. That's right. I've forgotten that Sir Forescale actually has a real name. Poor Sir Forescale. He's like somebody who has a forum name and gets called that all the time because their real name is just kind of like, not what people remember. All right. Let's see here. Under reflections, so we do not use our blue. What we're going to have is we're going to have light coming back up, bouncing off of the arm here. So let's put our arm highlight on. That's going to be pretty straightforward. It's going to be the top of the arm. It's going to show there. It's also going to show here. Because here what we've got is wherever the light is falling off the side of the model. So like here, you've got on the leg, you've got the highlight, and then right under it, you've got a shadow. So here on the arm, the part that's pointed toward your eye is the part that's going to get the brightest highlight because it's reflecting directly at you. And then it will also have a highlight on the top. And there will be a darker band between those two, and then will be a dark band right underneath it. So if we map out this, which is mostly good, except it has that shadow band at the top because of the shoulder overhang, then we can start getting everything to look right. Oh, okay, so good. So if you search for Sir Forescale, you will get the correct model. That's nice. Now we're working on very tiny amounts of metal. With the smaller, NMM can be both easier and harder when you are working on a very small mini, like 28 mil. Easier because you can fudge some things that you otherwise would not be able to on a very big model. You really have to nail it on a large model. But harder because you are really trying to fit in all these highlights and shadows into what is a very small area. So dark shadow right under the bright highlight. Make it small. Might want to mix a little gray into it. Whew. So maybe tomorrow we'll do something different for Friday. Maybe I'll whip out Rock Troll or something. We do need to finish like green puttying Rock Troll. But I don't know. I've got a couple other things around that I could work on. To paint, yes, everybody should paint a Sir Forescale for posterity. I'm pretty sure that I painted him before he was Sir Forescale. Because I was painting... The Templars were my army. I actually wrote the army book for them. So I'm pretty sure I painted most of the army as well. Yay. There, now we've got our under reflection, our top highlight. See those simple bands. So simple bands, just like down here. Although I haven't put a slightly darker shadow. But here we have highlight, shadows on either side, and then highlights on the outer edges, right? So what are we doing here? We've got a bright highlight, we've got shadows, we're going to put in a slight shadow on the other side, and then we've got an under reflection and a reflection up top. So cylinders work like this. I did put a really dark shadow. You can see how dark that shadow is. So I may grab some gray and glaze it a little bit to bring it a little bit back. And then highlight that under reflection a little bit. Just got to look right. Always be asking yourself, does it look right? Ah, a little bit too much. Alrighty. So there. And I'll put a slight shadow up there. Really slight. I'll work it off of this shadow, probably. Just make it come down just a little bit like I did on the breastplate. Still want mostly highlights up top. And then I gotta deal with this under reflection. So if I've got a bright light there, it's gonna be reflecting. It's probably gonna be reflecting more toward the bottom or the center. I may want to kind of fudge out that shadow a bit. This is where I've got to play at it, because I don't have something easy to hand that would let me know how to do this part. So I'm going to have to kind of figure it out. I don't want it to be quite bright, but it will get some reflected light. So I may need to block in the highlight stronger than I thought I would, just to see if it reads right. And then maybe block out my shadow just a tiny bit. It's not bad. Hipster Ann, are you? Thanks for the clip, Reaper John. Yes, back in the day. I painted Sir Forescale before he was... Yes, exactly. Before he was cool, man. Should I go and get my, like, you know, I should get some hipster attire on. What is it they all drink? Pabst Blue Ribbon? I can't remember. What's the hipster stereotype? Sadly, it was not attempting to be hipster. It was simply a statement. Because I'm old. So now I'm kind of blending this in to try to see if it looks right. It's getting there, but I really need to knock down this highlight. It is in shadow, so I really need to knock down that top highlight. So I'm going to grab some gray. I'm going to go just a few minutes over this hour, Justin, since I had a Curie emergency.
No problem.
So that I can make sure that I get my full hourage in. I'm going to mix this up. Pabst Blue Ribbon and coffee. Yeah, thanks for the hipster. I don't think I can possibly drink Pabst Blue Ribbon, though. Out of, what was it, my mom? My mom likes Coors Light, I think. And that's very Wisconsinite of her. But there's some beers that I just never managed to drink. And don't feel like I'm missing. So I've knocked down that light a little bit, so it's not quite as bright, but it's still reading too bright to me. Wear a scarf. For a while I used to wear a scarf at Reaper because it was so darn cold. Some of the year, like in the winter. I'm very susceptible. Yeah, I went craft beer, but then I went gluten-free Mathophile, and pretty much there are some acceptable gluten-removed beers now, but I've just cut back on my alcohol in general. Just because the guts don't like it as much anymore. But that's alright. Alright, so reintroduced a little bit of a shadow there. I think I need to make this shadow broader, though. I'm going to grab some water, thin my shadow color down a bit, and I'm going to broaden out this shadow. Make it take up more space and blend it in. So I'm trying to really get that this is in shadow, and I want the light to really... I think that it's probably too broad near the top. If it's reflected light, it should probably be harsher toward the bottom. So I'm going to make it just a little glimmer like that. Yeah, there are a lot of gluten-free beers. I mean, it's just these days it really is that I'm just not drinking much alcohol. Ye old guts are not thrilled with it, so usually it's not worth upsetting my my guts to have the booze. And if I find if I only have it every once in a while, then I can have a glass of wine with David and enjoy it. So I've more gone toward the wine and away from the beer. I'm trying to... I think I've got that area okay. Now I really need to work on the arm here, which is reading really blobby. Blobby! David loves IPA. Loves IPA. That is his favorite sort of beer. Though he likes the fruity IPA. He has a watermelon one, and I forget the others. I'm going to get some of my blue-gray. Blend this in a bit. So it's not as blobby. Wine is good for you except when alcohol is bad for your system, Shadow Raven. That is the sad truth. I keep telling myself I should be able to drink wine because it's quote-unquote good for you, but the sad truth is that my system is really sensitive to alcohol. It is a toxin. I mean, you know, some people do react to it, and I appear to be one of them. I drank a lot when I was younger. Probably didn't help what happened when I was older. Alright, shadow color on this side. I'm not an IPA fan either because I don't like the hoppiness. I don't like that sour, bitter kind of taste. Doesn't work for me, but on a really hot day, I would sometimes have an IPA. That shadow is reading too harsh too. That's still, I'm okay with the upper part of the shoulder pad now. I might blend it down. See how titchy this is? This is just like back and forth and back and forth, and you're just trying to figure out how to make it look right. And I think I need my shadow here to be a little broader to match the shadow above it. Because that's really what we're doing, right? We're actually taking the shadow here and diffusing it up here. And we're taking the highlight here and we're rebounding it up here. So we need to make sure that those things work together visually so that that effect translates right. So if I fuzz this in a little bit, minimize that under reflection. But you can see how delicate that it gets at this point to try to make little tiny areas like this that are complicated show up correctly. We're getting closer. Still not quite there, but we're getting closer. But we are almost done with stream. So if you have any questions, y'all should ask them while I try to make this dark shadow work better. Need to kind of fuzz it out, I think. Gray a little bit. Yeah, that's working a little better. That's starting to work. There, you know. You see what I'm trying to do? I need this dark shadow right under the pauldron, but I need some reflected light to be bouncing up onto the underside of this frill. So I think I need to put a spot highlight on that shoulder. Yeah, I do. I start with the midtone all the time, Corbe. I don't think that, because NMM is such a balance of highlight and shadow, I wouldn't find starting with either of those particularly to be easier than starting with my midtone. So I really do start with my midtone. Usually I will either block in the highlight or the shadow first, either the brightest highlight or the darkest shadow first, and I will work from there. And on stuff like this, as you've seen, there is a lot of adjustments, a lot of adjusting. A little bit of a spot highlight there to really bring that light out. And then I think I need just a tiny bit more of a highlight to make that reflection be convincing. Yeah. Now, can you see it now? So now we're seeing this highlight reflecting off of this part more convincingly. See? It almost looks like it moves. So that's good. That's good. So yes, now this is reading right. But I had to remember to put that dark shadow in underneath the edge of the pauldron. I need to kill it there though, because there is no frill out there. Yeah, Corvée, you can save yourself a lot of time starting with the mid-tone or the mid-dark. And not with your darkest shadow. I used to paint dark to light, and I realized that it really cost me a lot of time trying to work some of those colors up over a dark base coat. So you may want to re-examine and look at how much time you might be able to reclaim starting mid and working dark. As long as you remember to push your shadows enough, it can be workable. So there we go. That's a little bit better. Best way to start practicing NMM? Sword. And don't even do the bands like I did. Just practice like doing your highlight and your edging, and one side is lighter, one side is darker, and then bring your under reflection up. You have to learn to. NMM is about learning to start thinking about how light falls on surfaces. I still have too much of a highlight there. And so a sword, an angled blade like this, is the easiest one to do. Either one that's held out straight, like to the, so that one side of it is obviously up and the other's down, or ones that are slightly tilted, like these are actually pretty good, because one side is definitely facing the sky and the other one is facing the earth. So, the sky side is going to have the bluer gray, and this side is probably going to reflect whatever the ground color is. But, I mean, basically, I think swords are easiest. And then cylinders can be pretty simple once you get the alternating bands of light and shadow in your head. The hardest thing to do is stuff like this, or shields that are irregular, or big organic shapes, statues, things like that, where you really have to know how light falls and reflects. Yeah, I mean, I did one for one of my patrons. I think it was Chibi, where she put up a model and I just pretty much drew or painted a picture of the blade that the model held and just did kind of a study for her. So it is absolutely workable and a good idea to think about this stuff on paper before you apply it to the model. That kind of sketch is something that I'm going to use a lot in my coaching stuff, my email coaching stuff, because I like to kind of blow it up and be able to point it out. And I might not always have a copy of the model that they're working on, but I can always draw it. So, yeah, I mean, maybe too patchy, but it would still look right if your highlights and shadows are in the right place. Like, you don't need the perfect blending. Although, do try to use just slightly thinner paint, Dogfather. Slightly thinner paint. All right, guys. So, yay, we did some progress. I still feel like the shoulder here, the front of the shoulder here needs a lot of work, but at least the top is looking right to me now. And the greave and the sword are looking great. So, yay, look at how she's starting to get shiny. Yeah, exciting. Ah, yeah. So I may put her down for a while, and come back and do a little bit more for NMM. I don't want to over NMM you guys, but this week has pretty much been a masterclass in NMM. But yeah, we'll try. I'll grab something else tomorrow. I don't know what I'm going to grab. Maybe we'll grab Rocky again, although I'm not that thrilled with him. We just did Snake. I don't know. Maybe we'll grab Fire Giant. I didn't like how his sword turned out. I'm thinking of repainting it. Maybe we'll do some gold. Yeah, I mean, it is nice, right, Inara? So I'm glad I'm doing it this way instead of just painting one thing on a figure and kind of tossing it aside. I like that I'm choosing figures that I really like for one thing, and then I'm just progressing. Bring Spirit Beast back? That's a possibility. We could do his other wing. Talk about feathers. Yeah, have fun, Shadow Raven. Have good food. Aw, thanks with the bits. Thanks, Howl family, for the cheer. That's fantastic. So, all right. Justin, do we have a raid?
Yes, we do, actually. We have a very special raid today.
Ooh, who is special?
We're going to be raiding Michael Mordor, and it is his very first stream ever. And he is a pretty big Reaper fan. He does a lot of stuff for us on Twitter, too, so.
Oh, yay! Okay, so it's a very special stream and raid, guys. So you got to go over there and give him some love, okay? Because if it's his first ever stream, that will just be so happy for him. All right.
It will be.
Yes. Tell him
make sure
hi.
everyone follow him. Please.
Yeah. Give him the follow so he can get affiliate. Having just done this, I know how hard, how happy I was when you guys all followed me. Although if he's like me, he's gonna be like, oh my god, everybody's following. All right. So pass on the love to Michael, guys, please. Okay, and we'll see you guys tomorrow morning. I don't know. It'll be a surprise what we work on. Who knows? Have fun, everybody.
All right, guys. We will see you later at about 3 o'clock for painting platinum, and it was good seeing you guys today. Thank you very much for coming out. Spread the Reaper love. Keep being awesome, and tell Michael we said hi. Thanks, guys.